Good morning. Thank you for your prompt attendance as always. Barring the unlikely scenario against which I pray every day, that in the next 5 months the sky does not collapse onto the Thai banking system, this should be my last formal discourse with you. As I will soon depart for a literally greener pasture, I wish all of you all the best for the rest of your boring money-crunching career, number-crunching careers. With that kind of perverse eulogy, I'd like to open KBANK 2019 year-end investor and analyst presentation. A few weeks ago, I had a private meeting with Governor of Bank of Thailand, officially to discuss with him the issue of succession plan at KBANK, which is now settled. But I took the opportunity to wish him well and hope that under his watch, the Thai banking system does not get in the position that it has to be short of capital. Because if that were to be the case, unlike back in 1997, some of you had that experience with me, today in the current environment, any banking system will be unable to recapitalize by itself. Given the scenario of low growth everywhere, Thailand included, there is no growth story to sell to potential investors. Back then, people were still hoping that there would be a V-shaped kind of recovery and all that, and a lot of investors bought that story. That kind of story would not be able to sell these days. That's the way the world is now. And the thing is that the ability for banks to make profits is relatively less than 20 years ago. Things are getting tougher, from the making loans as well as gaining the fee income sort of things that we have enjoyed over the past couple of decades. And the third and most important point, I think, is that unlike some 20 years ago, today having a banking license is not that valuable anymore. It used to be a near monopoly. It's no longer the case given the new paradigm shift that people, even without banking licenses, with the new technology, can also deliver banking services. So it makes for a tough act on the part of this existing financial institutions of the finding way of making sure that they survive and still have something to do in the coming future. Right? So in given overview, as I said before, there's low growth everywhere. So there's something that is difficult to navigate when there's no growth. It's difficult to lend to, and also you have to be very careful about the asset quality as you lend. So we are projecting even the more dismal figure of 2.7 GDP growth next year. It's not a number that people can really prosper by unless you do something different, which KBANK intends to do. All kind of risks are bound here. That's nothing surprising. These are the numbers that we are projecting the what's likely to be the case for 2019 and also the coming years. NIM slightly lower, 3.1 to 3.3. Loan growth should be less given the environment. And the easy loans have been made. Now we have to be very careful given the likelihood of the asset quality issues and all kind of market conduct regime that the Bank of Thailand would like the banks to adhere to. The Bank of Thailand now wants the bankers to be a responsible lender, something that over my 40 years career I have never met. Non-interest income growth is getting less and less. It's difficult to maintain that speed that we have enjoyed over the recent years. Cost-income ratio, given we manage the process as well, should be in the mid-40s. Credit costs shouldn't be coming down unless there's another collapse of asset quality. We were careful that should not be the case. NPL, 3%, that's nothing to be excited about. And ROE, that's the numbers you can calculate yourself. Vision. When things are getting bleak, people starting having vision. Because the Bank is no different. So, aim to be most innovative, proactive, customer-centric financial institutions. This is just to be politically correct. You don't put it in there, then we're missing something, right? It's like going to bed and then before you go to bed, you say a prayer, hoping that the next day when you wake up, the world will be a better place. So that's also the case here. Let's hope we put in the visions for you to enjoy. But we'll see how that's going to work. By the way, the last word in this vision is talent is becoming a critical issue in running the banking business. Banking in general is not an area that you can attract talents of the future anymore, especially people who are well-versed in digital technology. You have to change the perception of the bank as a workplace. It's not the old kind of banking organization, but a new technology platform, which we are KBANK Bank trying to do with KBTG and all this, right? Otherwise, we would never be able to get all this kind of new generation of digital savvy kind of staff to join us, which would be a disastrous scenario if that were to be the case. Actually, we guiding ourselves going forward under three strategic imperatives, which is first of all to be embedded in select financial relevant ecosystem. That means that people don't just naturally walk into the banks anymore, not the branch system that we had in the past, the physical branch system. So the place of commerce has shifted from the streets, the bricks and mortar, onto the digital platform, e-commerce platforms, which banks do not control. Somebody else controls that. So banks have to get into a link up with all these ecosystem, e-commerce platforms to make sure that we are not irrelevant and become invisible and become irrelevant in terms of when people need financial products and services now to be conducted on e-commerce platforms, that we're still there as a provider of financial service. This is very critical, and this is where we are moving very, very objectively, linking up with the various leading e-commerce platforms that, as you've seen in the news over the recent past. Lend successfully using data analytics. The financial balance sheet is not enough now to determine whether a customer is good enough of a credit. I mean, the easy ones have been done with, right? The ones that's around being waiting to be addressed don't have the financial data that we actually wish we would have. So you have to trust, you have to work on, you have to rely on the new set of data, which has to be carefully gathered and analyzed. Right? So that's something, there's a new skills that banks have to learn to work and to do so to be able to do so very fast, and to ensure that the system has integrity. Every time there is a cyber attack, it scares everybody, us included. So that's a lot of investment, not in terms of only technology, but the way we work, the cultural transformation of making sure that the system is airtight and not getting hacked. From these three strategic imperatives, the team has come up with 8 transformation journeys. It could have been 7 or could have been 9, but my team, with the vision, actually selected 8, which is good. So next year when you come, the next CEO, you can ask her how many projects that should be. Maybe she says 0. So you can read this to your heart content. These are the numbers. Again, the loan growth by sector. As I said, the easy ones are gone. So we have to be very careful how we jump into these loans, the new analytics, right? Hopefully the growth coming from the infrastructure investment, which seems to be on track now, after the recent issues here, that hopefully that will be one of the proponents, one of the booster for the Thai economic growth, along with the spending schemes that the government is implementing, Chim Chop Chai and all this. All right. The SME is difficult these days. The good ones have already been lent to, so you're still going down to the small size SMEs, of which the issues of creditworthiness is become critical. So overall, we're projecting 4 to 6% loan growth overall. Right? But I think the challenge is to make sure that the asset quality issue does not blow up as we move further into the gray area of the lending, which is an issue that faces all the banking system in the world right now. Composition of growth, net fees and non-interest income, that used to be a big item on the income pie, and that has come lower every year. So this is the last year we're going to show this. It's getting to be too depressing. So next year you can guess it's probably lower than this. So, but that is the reality that for everybody in the markets, right? So we have to sell with good market contacts to begin with, still make sure that it goes to the part of the markets that have not been penetrated. The consulting firms have this term that they always sell to us to get a more granularity into your marketing. That means you're trying to go low into the market, deeper penetration without flopping, that kind of concept. Asset quality, we have been provisioning as we should against all the future probabilities and also the regulations that require the banks to set aside in a stricter fashion against a possible loan loss in the future. So that's going to, I think that has been done all along with us in KBANK. The credit costs should be coming down next year to 160s. Of course, all this on the assumption that nothing bad happens on the asset side, asset quality side. ROE, that's something that you can calculate as you like. We may be waving goodbye to 2-digit ROE for a while, unless we find something new and better and more intelligent to go about things. Despite all this deterioration, I think this NIM has been reasonably well held up over the years, right? But it's gradually coming down. So that's also a part of the challenge that faces all the banks. Cost-to-income ratio should be around here, the mid-40s, even though the banks have to invest more and more in the digital technology. So we have to be very careful how we spend the money, make sure that we cover the costs. Capital, so far it looks more than adequate, but given the stricter regular regime coming down the road, the next generation of Basel, TFRS 9, all that, maybe just enough to get by. We always want to be on a conservative side, and as I said when I opened my discourse today, that we never want to get into the scenario where we undercapitalize, because we won't be able to do that again like 20 years ago, right? So we better stay on the safe side. But that has some impact on this issue which people always raise, the dividend payouts. Payout ratio 29%. Looks good to me, but everybody else seems to disagree with me. So this is something that we can come back to, given this stock market conditions here that people are looking for cash return. So that's something that will wait on my consideration. We'll still have 5 months to go before we make that clear. So we think of balanced growth and making sure that we have adequate capital and stay in line with sustainability concept. That's the way forward. And with that, I